Good morning. I want to welcome you to the Drug Unit Supervisor course being presented to you by Professional Law Enforcement Training. This organization I've been with for a while. We do really good stuff, things that I think are important, especially now with everything that's going on. So I hope you guys are up, everybody's up, and it's good. This will be my first one. As you can see, I'm out of my working out of my gun room at home in the basement. So hopefully everything's good. If you have any questions or any concerns about what's going on, if you can't see something, give you a chance to do that. I'm sure they went over it with you. But if you want to get a hold of Chandler, you have her text information, phone information. If there's any technical issues, get a hold of her. Don't ask me because, like you can see, I'm in the old generation, so this is new to me. So we'll get through it. We'll do the best we can. But honestly, I want to welcome everybody here today, this morning. We've got 2 days, 4-hour courses or time, so hopefully we can learn something. Let me get my PowerPoint going here. Okay, let's see. And again, a technical glitch on my part. Here we go. Okay, I'd like to welcome you here and kind of give you an information of who I am. I'm Thomas Ferguson, Indiana State Police, retired. I was a captain with the state police, and I'll give you a little background history on me about where I came from to give you some idea of maybe where you're at and what you want to do with your career. I started out working the road. I went through my Indiana State Police recruit school, worked the road. I won't tell you what year that was, but I'll kind of indicate there's back in 1979. So if that gives you any idea. Went through there, worked the road for 5 years, went out and pretty much did everything road troop would do. We have to work the road where I'm from to start out with so that you get that experience. I worked the road for 5 years. Upon that, did about everything I could out there on the highway. Everything but accident reconstruction. I didn't really went into that much. The one thing that I wasn't into was I wasn't into writing tickets. So I decided that it was something I should do, look for a opportunity to move into a different discipline, which I did. And after 5 years of working the road, I went to work with the Drug Enforcement Unit, our department. I worked at Area 5, Indianapolis, which is, it was a pretty good sized area. We had a lot of things going on. Predominantly, we worked narcotics. I did everything: narcotics, prostitution rings, thefts, burglaries, you name it. We worked at all covert opportunities there to work that. So worked the road for worked undercover for about 8 years. Did a lot of stuff with ATF, FBI, DEA. Worked a lot of things with the local departments. From that, I moved up to sergeant. I inherited my own squad after 8 years of working the streets. From that point forward, I ended up being a squad sergeant for about 5 years. After that, I was promoted to first sergeant. And I got into the administrative factor of it by doing the first sergeant's job. And that changed my whole perception on what was going on. And that's what we'll talk about a little bit today, because we're talking about those that are interested in moving into supervision, what it's going to take, and what kind of attitude you're going to have once you move from working out there actively on the street to actually doing paperwork. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go to give you some pointers there. I don't know, because of this, the webinar, I can't really see you guys, and I've looked at some of the roster to see where you're at, but usually at this point, I'll ask you how many years you have and what experience you have in narcotics. I know there's officers that come from other disciplines that get promoted into narcotics that it may be something you want to do. It may not be something you want to do. It may be a situation where you want the promotion to move forward, to move up, but you're not real sure on how to go about it. And the question poses too is, can you move from, say, working the traffic being a supervisor on traffic, or can you move to being an officer working as a supervisor in narcotics? Yes, you can. You just have to change your mindset and the discipline that you're used to.
Sorry.
Also, what we want to do is talk about that transformation. We'll try to help you along the way with that. Once I got the first sergeant's job in administration, I then moved to captain. It was one of those things where the boss calls you and says, hey, you want to be a captain? And you don't really turn that down. That was towards the end of my career. It would help me with moving up and moving forward as I wanted to do. My inclination was to move up the chain. I really did. At one point, I got tired of doing the same thing over and over again. And I wanted to move up. And I think the other thing of it was I wanted to move up to help people. And I know a lot of you are sitting out there and you'll say, you know, if I was the boss, or if I was this, or if I had this chance, I would do something differently. Well, sitting in on this class, on this course, some mindset that you can have, you'll have the opportunity to do that. The one thing I want to caution you on, will you do that? As I found out going up, once I got to that point, in the captain level, you're dealing with policies, procedures, things of that nature, a totally administrative avenue. If you're not prepared for that, it can be pretty tough on you. I would like to ask, and I don't see a response, but I'd like to ask what your intentions are and why you want to move up. Why do you want to promote yourself and move up the chain? Some folks want to do it because of the money. They'll get a pay raise. Some folks want to do it because of the prestige. So whatever reason you want to go up, that's fine. But one thing I'd like for you to keep in mind is, what can I do to benefit my department? What can I do, most importantly, to benefit the people that I work with? Once I got to the captain's position, I was there for about a year. We had a change of administration, and at that particular point in time, I moved on and retired, and I've been retired since. Little background on the teaching and instructing. I was a master instructor with the Indiana State Police Department. I did that for several years, and then from there, I was joined up with a team from Alaska and Anchorage, and I worked that for about 10 years, and I've been with PLET for probably, going on 2 years. Maybe this might be my third. So still enjoying it, still want to do. So enough about me, and we'll move on and see what we can do about getting you guys involved. I want to know too, and it's usually a show of hands, but if you guys ever attended, and gal I see, ever attended other management or leadership or supervisor training. If you have, that's great. I think the thing about it is sometimes we get wrapped around the axle where we just want to attend these courses in order to be able to fulfill our obligation to get our credit hours or to maintain our training. That's good in a way, but I think too is that you have to work at what you want to achieve when you get there. It's going to take some work. Leadership or supervisor training, it all depends on where you're at and how you want to get there. I know some of you are probably team leaders out there that help out, that people look towards or look to you for leadership. So that's what we'll look at and we'll talk about here. I'll ask too, if there's supervisors out there already that have a lot of time on or that's been on for a while, do me a favor. You signed up for a 4-hour block today, and there'll be a 4-hour block tomorrow. If you've got over 10 years of supervisory experience or more, and you're one of my experienced guys, do me a favor. Recharge your battery today, if you would. Look at this as an opportunity to maybe sit back and reevaluate where you're at. I know that after a period of time, you become complacent in what you do and how you go about your business. So do me a favor and recharge your battery. I'm sure you're probably getting paid to attend. If you are, that's great. If you've done it on your own time, that's good too. But recharge your battery for me, all right? For those that have less time or just now getting into supervision or wanting to get into supervision, there's no way that you're going to gain the experience other than being there, researching, training, learning, going along the way. I wish I could say, hey, send me $50 and I'll send you a magic potion that's going to make you an excellent supervisor. It doesn't happen that way. As I said, going back, I learned from the ground up. So I think it gives me an opportunity to talk to you about what it takes to become a supervisor, a good supervisor, so that you will learn along the way and help find your way as you go. So if that's the case, then that'd be great. The one thing I want to make sure that you understand is I'm not here to tell you how to perform your job. I'm not. I teach all over the country, different disciplines, different people, different departments, and I'm not telling you how to perform your job based on other SOPs, how your department does things and how things go. I'm here to help you improve your job skill or your skill set in performing your job. That's all. You're going to find that I'm a little different in my teaching approach. I try not to tell you what to do. I try to suggest things that work for me based on my personal experience going through this and moving up, as I said, from road patrol to captain. And at that captain position, I had, there was 360 people that we had association with that I was supervising indirectly. 168 I had directly. So that was, was a pretty decent sized department, pretty decent sized drug investigation unit. And again, I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. I'm here to help you improve your skill set in performing your job. Of course, we're preparing new supervisors to properly and successfully conduct day-to-day investigations, which include managing and leading personnel, managing undercover personnel, planning operations, managing informants and cases, task force management, and legal and liability issues. It's a little early, but I'm going to go there. I applaud you. I respect you. I appreciate what you're doing, especially in this time, at this time. I look back and think what I went through when I came through the ranks and when I was out there working, and it's not even anything that I came about. It's not even close to what you guys are experiencing out there today. So I have the utmost respect for you guys maintaining the fight. I'll say that. And with that comes the responsibility of you as a supervisor or you as a leader to help bring this movement that we have to do forward. And I won't get out there on that limb real far, but I wanted to put that out there. And I wanted to, from the heart, let you know how much I respect and appreciate what you're doing. So with this course, if you need to find out about managing undercover personnel or personnel, planning your operations, managing informant in cases, task force management, and the thing most importantly, I think now, legal and liability issues. What you need to do as a supervisor or as an officer out there working with others, what you need to do to make sure that we can move forward. The course composition is lectures, demonstrations, labs, and discussion groups. The discussion groups is kind of a moot point because of the webinar thing. I was too lazy to change the slide, but I know hopefully I'll be changing it back. So the discussion group can be there. I know there's an opportunity for you to ask questions, to type in questions, and what we'll do is we'll look at that at the end of the hour, okay? We'll go about 50 minutes and do that. Questions, class hours, breaks, such that no need for that administrivia. If you have questions, again, like I said, put them up. We'll take time at the end of the block to answer those or address those questions. The one thing too is that if I don't have the answer, I'll find the answer. All right. Like I said, my ego's not that big to where I know everything. I just know from hard work and dedication where I'm at and be able to pass that information on to you. Break time, will take a 10-minute break or so after the 50 minutes and get you a chance to do whatever you need. If you need to do that, like I said, I can't see what you're doing, so you do whatever you want. As long as you, if there's certain highlights and stuff, you can pay attention to it. Now, the cell phone issues, non-issue, as you notice, mine went off, even though I had it turned down. Siri decided she needed to speak, but we took care of that. We're going to go ahead and work through this. We'll keep going and see where we're at. We're talking about undercover management, drug supervision. Again, I talked about what it takes to be a supervisor or to manage a drug unit. My whole career was wrapped around narcotics. Once I got into the drug unit, I stayed. I put 23 years in narcotics investigations. I also did some conventional investigations, basically whatever they needed. Before I became involved in narcotics, they would TDY me to do insurance fraud cases, child molest cases, more traditional cases that didn't involve the narcotic nexus. But once I got into narcotics, that's where I stayed. I stayed for 23 years. So I can relate to that by letting you know. When we talk about management, how do I manage these undercover officers? Some of you out there will know for a fact that undercover is different than some of the road guys or some of the other disciplines. Narcotics officers out there seem to have this thing. I think it's called an ego. It's like this big. I know I had one. There wasn't anyone that I couldn't buy dope from. There wasn't anyone that I couldn't put in jail. So with that ego comes an opportunity to be out there doing what I want. One thing too is that when you're talking about narcotics officers, we didn't have much of a tether attached to our belt, our duty belt. As a matter of fact, I think most people that join in the narcotics arena, the reason they get into it is because they want to wear blue jeans, a t-shirt, cowboy boots, or what have you, shorts, flip-flops, drive an unmarked vehicle. So how do we manage those folks? That we're giving them so much leeway that they have that opportunity to just be out there doing what they want, okay? As we go along, if you guys have any questions, I just brought in a reminder here that you can raise your hands under the Q&A and we'll get to that. But how do we manage them? How do we work with individuals who have that ego, who have that opportunity to go out and pretty much work on their own? They have to be reliant on themselves and what they do. So we're going to talk about that. We got a video for you here, Leadership Through the Ages. Take a look at this video and we'll discuss that after the fact. There's also going to be some videos involved. And the reason for that is that it gives us an opportunity to sit back and look and to think. It gives me an opportunity to stop talking. So we'll run this video through and see what you think. Okay. With that video in mind, list the greatest leaders you may know. This could be someone you may have known personally, someone you have known professionally, someone you may have heard about, someone you may have studied. If you want to just kind of keep that in your mind, or if you got a piece of paper, you want to scratch that down, do that. Take some time to do that. And let's discuss that. And let's see where we're at with who are the greatest leaders that I have known, or who was instrumental in helping me move forward, or what gave me that opportunity to look at becoming a leader, or having that ability to become a leader. I know for me, a lot of it was around my grandfather. I grew up on a farm, small farm here in central Indiana. My parents were divorced when I was 2. My grandmother and grandfather took me in, and I lived with them until I was 17, 18 years old, actually right around after graduation of high school. And that bringing up of, to me, that was my leader. That was the person that set my moral compass. That was the person that gave me my work ethic. That was the person that basically showed me what I needed to do to be a man, actually, and what I needed to do to go out here and be successful. Upon that, I know we all have that individual, that person that in that mindset that was a leader, that someone you looked up to, that was a mentor. As time went by and I was a little more educated and a little more outlook, looking out and seeing who leaders were through certain times, that through our history or through businesses or things of that nature, those are the individuals we look up to or can look up to. Some of the business folks, Mark Zuckerberg, I know for you younger folks, he's someone that's there, as we saw the video, those that started up the YouTube movement. Those people there are leaders. Those people there are innovators. They step out, and as you would say now, they're outside, think outside the box. And where we're at, or where you're at when you're thinking about this, you may want to think about, who do I want to be like? How do I want to be when I make this move, when I go forward? I know when I got into the drug unit, there's a mentor, older guy, and I pretty much followed him around everywhere. Worked TDY with him, which is temporary duty. He'd have a case, and I'd go help him before I even got in the unit. Then once I got in the unit, I followed him around, and I learned so much from him. I owe him a debt of gratitude for that, because he taught me a lot of things. Some of the things that I overlooked because I was in that movement of just bind up. I was in that movement of I just got to go make cases. I got to throw people in jail. And he taught me the idea, the fact of how to be an investigator. And then to this day, he's 76 years old. He still runs a private investigators. He's still a private investigator out there, still going 100 miles an hour, still doing his thing. But he was one of my mentors when we look at that. I know one thing that helped me along the way was when I would say, if I was the boss, I'd do certain things a certain way. And one of the things that helped me was the fact that if I had a good boss, I tried to emulate him. All right. I took the things that boss did that would help me be the boss. One experience was with First Sergeant Landis. I would go into his office and sit down, and I give him a brief on the case I was working, and he would let me give my spiel, and he would listen to me. And at the end of the conversation, this falls into the communication part, falls into that part. He would ask me, well, did you ever think about this? Or did you think about that? Or what would you do if this happened? He didn't tell me what I should be doing, or he didn't direct me on what I should do. He gave me the opportunity to think for myself. All right. That's what we want to look for. And another individual too, and I can use names now because I'm retired and these guys are my mentors and I like to acknowledge them in one form or fashion. But Captain Dean Petrie is the same way. You know, he same philosophy on leadership, same philosophy on being a leader. He would step out there and give you the opportunity, or give the detective opportunity to think for themselves, but give them guidance on which direction they need to go. So if you're out there thinking about that now, who are you thinking about? Give it some thought on who you're thinking about. The other side of the coin is those guys that I had as supervisors that were less than leaders. Some of them were not very good leaders at all, as a matter of fact. I learned from them also. And what did I learn from them? Not to be that way. I'm never going to be like that or do what this guy did. So that gives you an opportunity to advance and to learn along the way. All right. Think about that. Think about some of the folks out there that you know, that may be a mentor, family, friend, person, or whatever. Just give us some thought. Leadership, the process through which you motivate, direct, influence, and communicate with those you work with to get them to perform in ways that will help the organization achieve its goals. So take some time to look at this. Motivate. How do we motivate people to get them to come to work, to do the things we want to do? Can we motivate someone? How do we go about that motivation? Well, we beat them about the head with a stick. Well, no, that's old school. We hang a golden carrot out in front of them and promise things that we never deliver. Well, that's kind of the way things work now, right? Let me think. How about this? We provide them with an opportunity or a location to where they get up in the morning and they want to come to work. How's that? We provide them with an opportunity to come to a location, wherever it be, come to the office in the morning, where they provide them with a place where they want to come to work. That's highly motivating. I get up in the morning, my feet hit the floor, I'm ready to go to work. Or I get up in the morning, and some of you can relate to this with some of the supervisors or bosses you have. I get up in the morning, my feet hit the floor, and I think about 50,000 ways why I can't go to work. All right. We can motivate individuals. Some of us say we motivate you with the golden carrot by saying we're going to make changes, or we're going to do stuff, or we're going to do that. And it never happens. So that's something to think about. How can I motivate someone? How can I make it a better place, a better work environment where they want to come to work? Direct. Can I direct people? Can I move them in a motion or direction to where they want to go? And that's my leadership. That's me sending them or taking them on that path to where they want to go. I can direct that. I can make that happen. I can say we need to be from here, we need to get over there. And how are we going to do that? I'm delegating to them. I'm giving them direction. I'm helping them get to where they want to go without being in that area of being heavy-handed or being someone who's always telling you what to do. Micromanaging, for example, but we will talk about that at length later on. Influence. What kind of influence am I going to be to them? How can I influence them? How can I influence someone to come to work? Again, creating that environment to where they want to come to work, leading by example, leading from the front. By me walking the walk and talking the talk, that's how I influence them. I know that going back to some of the supervisors that I had, and I mentioned Captain Petrie, if he told me, excuse me, one day he says, Ferguson, see that brick wall right there? Yes, sir, Captain. I want you to run through that brick wall. I want you to get from this side to the other side when I get back. Am I going to be able to do it? Yeah, I could do it with special tools, with certain tools, but no tools, just me. Am I going to be able to do it? Probably not. But when he comes back, what he's going to find on this side of the wall is a bloody mess from trying. A bloody mess from trying. That influence that he gave me along the way is going to give me the drive to make things happen. But communicate with those you work with. Let's talk about that for a while. I think that is the most important aspect of learning to be a supervisor and being a good supervisor, is my communication skills. How do I communicate with people? I would go out and risk, for some of you that are working, or whatever discipline you're in, but we're talking narcotics, and that's what we'll all kind of relate to. I bet you that you're a better communicator when you're out there trying to buy dope, or when you're out there working as an informant, than you are with the people you work with. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. And the reason I say that is because we spend more time training and learning how to communicate with the bad guys, or with the informants, or people outside our circle, than we do with people in our circle, don't we? Let me go a little further. Let's take that communication skill home with us. All right, let's take that communication skill home with us. As you saw, I have my cell phone out. For whatever reason, it started acting up. But I have that thing with me all the time. I have it with me at work. I have it with me at home. As a matter of fact, when I go to bed, it sits on the nightstand right there beside me, doesn't it? 24/7. So when I get home and my child or my kids or my spouse or my significant others trying to communicate with me, what do? I shut them off. I shut them off because this is more important than that. We have to learn to communicate with each other. We have to learn to communicate with the people we work with. And by that, I mean everything. Body language, what comes out of our mouths, what they hear, what we say. It has to be communicated in a positive, constructive way. I would behoove you to look into taking some communication skill classes or some courses. I know some of you have probably have taken the Reed interrogation technique or other opportunities from other businesses or industries or something that provide that. So let's look at trying to recoup and just come back to our communication skills, all right? Especially with those people you work with. In order to get them to perform in ways that will help the organization achieve its goals. Excuse me, we'll grab a drink. Help the organization achieve its goals. Sometimes, as supervisors, or managers, or leaders, we forget about the organization. We use that twofold. We forget about the organization, for that's whom we work with or who we work for, and that's where our paycheck comes from, to make it an individual, personal thing that I have to achieve all of these goals and make all these arrests and do all this and do all that for me to look good. Well, let's think about this. We're talking about leadership in this aspect. We got to keep in mind we're helping the organization achieve its goals. And if that is what we're thinking about and trying to do, and all that, once we achieve that, that comes back to us too. That makes us look like we're doing our job and it's relevant to the department. And I found too that sometimes when you make it an individual thing, you're going to you struggle through that to make those, to achieve other goals, okay? Leading and managing, the basic difference between managers and leaders. Leaders lead by example, but not necessarily from the front. What do we mean by that? Leaders lead by example, but not necessarily from the front. What we talk about is, again, what am I doing? And I'm looking at my subordinates are looking at me, or my team members are looking at me for leadership. And if I'm doing something that's not policy driven, constitutionally driven, statute driven, then what direction am I going from? Or if I'm not following my own comments, that's what we want to talk about too, is leaders lead by example. What example am I presenting to my subordinates? What example am I presenting to my other team members? That's important. I can say for a fact that they gave us this car to drive, and they pay for the gas, they pay for maintenance, they pay for tires, they put all this fancy equipment in it. And I can drive it as a Indiana State Trooper. I can drive it anywhere in the state, anytime. That was a perk that they had for us. And I remember myself, and I would ask my subordinates when I saw that they weren't taking proper care of that, and we're talking leading by example. I asked them if that vehicle came with the payment book. They say no. I said, well, what about insurance? You got to pay insurance on that? Well, no. Well, then why can't we keep it clean? Why can't we keep the maintenance up? But provide us with these things, equipment, maintenance, vehicles. Why can't we keep that up? That was my thing. Until the very end of my career, was times I made sure that my equipment was up to par, my vehicle was clean, I kept it clean. As a matter of fact, I still do that. It's an old habit I developed way back when, but I kept it clean. My office was clean. Everything was up to par because I wanted people to see that. I felt that I couldn't go in and give someone instruction on why they need to clean their vehicle, why they need to maintain their equipment. If they looked at me and saw that, well, you're not taking care of your stuff, why should I? You see what I'm saying? So when we become supervisors, or we want to be leaders, we have to lead by example. But then on the other side, not necessarily from the front. I can lead from back here just as well. And I can have my guys out doing their thing, but I can be orchestrating what's going on back there, leading versus managing. I can manage paper clips. Honestly, I can put inventory here. I can put the red ones here, the blue ones here, the green ones here. I can do that easy. But when I go to the leading part, how do I lead? What do I do to make it so that I'm leading the people down the right path? Making the transition. I kind of put it into this fact of going from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde. Turned myself into a manager. There's some situations where this is what I wanted. I wanted to become a supervisor. I wanted to become a manager. And I worked hard at doing that. And I studied and I took the classes and I took the test and I passed the test. And all of a sudden, one day, boom, you got it. The other one is, as I've experienced before with teaching individuals, is that they'll come to the class and they come to me and say, hey, not for nothing, but I'm not on a roster. I'm not even supposed to be here. I didn't find out until Friday I was supposed to be here today because they're making me in charge. They're putting me in charge of the drug unit. Oh, okay. So what did you do prior? I was just a road trooper, but so-and-so got moved on and they put me, so I'm here. And I remember distinctly, there's several that they would come in and their eyes were as big as silver dollars going, oh man, what do I do? Well, that's what the deal is. That's where it is. Also for those that went that way voluntarily and you put in for it, then all of a sudden you get it, you be careful what you wish for. How do I make that transition from going from one of the subordinates or one of the workers on the team? Now I'm the supervisor. Now I'm the manager. There's some points and some things that we will talk about as we go forward about how we can help or how we can learn today some of the things that will help us get there. I know some of you out there that have already been supervisors or managers are kind of set in your ways, kind of doing things that's worked for you. You've hopefully found out the things that work and you found out the things that don't work. As again, I ask you to recharge your batteries. Just start thinking about, okay, maybe there's another way I should do something, or reassess what you're doing and see if that works for you now. What makes the transition so difficult? What can be done to make it smoother? Manage yourself. How am I doing things? And there's so many different ways to do that. It's just amazing. And the thing that I found out was after being out on the street and buying dope and doing cases and, as I would say, running and gunning, I learned to do that really well. There's trial and errors, but I learned to do that fairly well, as a matter of fact. Manage yourself when we're talking about moving forward as a supervisor. How do I manage myself? How do I critique myself? What do I need to look at? My time management, my effectiveness, my communication skills, my people skills. Everything that involves that, I need to look in the mirror and go, what are you doing that's going to help you make this transition? What transaction? We're talking about buying dope, but what's going to help me make this transition? Manage myself. What do I need to do to look at myself in order to make me more efficient and more effective in my job that's coming up in this transition? One of those things can be training. One of those things could be experience, on the job training. Go to a mentor, talk to them, realize what they're doing. Manage performance. How do we manage performance, and what is performance as a supervisor? How do you look at it? Do you look at it as a numbers game? Do you look at how many drug buys we've made, how many arrests we've made? How do we look at that performance based on our job description for our discipline? How do I manage that? My performance was made or was gauged by how my team was doing. All right? How my team was doing, how my unit was doing, how my officers were doing. That's what gave me my evaluation, because I had to learn that the numbers game was a game that you kept pushing. But the number one thing I think when you're talking about managing performance was safety. How can I do that in my head? How can I make everything safe for my guys? That was my skill. When I came in on my evaluations and I looked at my evaluations, that was my skill. By managing myself and keeping track of essential paperwork, being effective with that, taking care of all these things I had to take care of systematically, that was important. Manage performance. Am I managing or those people out there? That was mine. That was my thing. I want to make sure my team was able to go out and safely conduct themselves with investigations and do their job. The work setting. Remember, I want to make this place somewhere where people get up in the morning and they want to come to work. That's what I want to do. How do I manage the work setting? Several different ways of doing that. I know when I got the captain's position downtown headquarters, it's funny, I used to walk in those offices or by those offices in my early career, and I look and there'd be the major's office and the captain's office. And they were in charge of investigations. That was the pinnacle. And I was always intimidated by that. You know, who wants to go down to the third floor, we call it. Who wants to go down to the SOB, state office building? Come on now. And go there and be able, especially at the third floor. You didn't want to do that. So every chance you got to get out of there, you got out. So when I went down and I got promoted to captain and I went down, of course, you know, me, trying to be organized. And I was there a few days earlier to clean up the office, redo some stuff. And in a particular setting, it's pretty cool too, because the office, if you ever watch a sporting event and they show down or Indianapolis, let's say have a Colts game or something like that, 8,500, and they'll show the canal. And the canal's beautiful. They've got it set up, the businesses and restaurants and stuff on it. In my office, I could actually sit at my desk and look right straight down the canal. So if he's having a bad day, you can look down. It's a beautiful day outside. You can look down at the canal. That would help you. But that also meant that I had my back to the door. Okay, we're talking about the work setting for me as a supervisor, leader. Which meant when people came in, the first thing they saw was the back of my head and my back. So I reconfigured that office so that I'm looking at the door. So when they walk through the door, they're meeting me, the work setting in this particular situation. As a supervisor, based on your discipline, where's that work setting going to be? Is that going to be at the office, or is that going to be you out running a squad, running a team out in the field? That's what you have to look at. Is that where that's going to be? So in order to make that work, what can I do to make that work effectively for me? Okay. Recognize that you're not alone. Recognize that you're not alone. You're not the first to become a new supervisor. You're not the first one that made that transition. There's others before you. And that's where that comes in, that they made mistakes prior to. Did they learn? What did they learn from their mistakes? What can I do to ask others, or to go to someone else, or go to another mentor or another leader and ask, hey, what is it that I can do to make myself better? In order for you to do that, you have to communicate with them. So recognize you're not alone. And in today's world, the internet and the opportunity for knowledge is endless. It's endless. It all depends on you. It depends on how do you want to improve? How do you want to make yourself better? Keep the end in mind and practice patience. That's the hardest part right there. Where am I going to go with this? Because when we start out, my responsibilities rely with me. That's it. I'm responsible for my job and what I have to do. So when I get promoted and I get in a supervisor capacity, now I'm in charge of whom and responsible for whom. Those folks that I supervise. That's who I'm responsible for. Where does this go? Especially working with narcotics officers, keeping the end in mind. Where do I want to be? What steps, what phases do I want to be at? Where do I want to grow? And practice patience. How do I do that? Some of my experienced guys out there sitting out there, think about this one. Where does that come from? Patience. How many of you work for somebody that just keeps pushing, or pushing this, or is impatient about the deal, the drug deal, especially in our line of work, where we're always having to wait on someone else. We can't control the bad guy, make him show up on time, or make the informant show up in time, or half the time we can't control our subordinates. So that's one thing when we practice patience. And the thing that I would say is, looks like I got a timer. If we've gone our 50 minutes, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go off of this timer. It says that we've been that far. We'll get through this one slide and we'll take a break, okay? Real quick. And if you got to go, take a break, take a break, do your thing. But practice patience. And one thing I want to say to you is this, that your expectation may not be their expectation. And that patience is going to take to bring them up to that point, or maybe never achieve that. That's one thing you want to look at. Be patient in the things you go about doing. The one thing too is when you become a new supervisor, the cops don't like change. They don't like change at all. So be patient in the things you do. Recognize setbacks as learning opportunities. Hey, I didn't do that quite right, or I didn't actually. Let's boil down to it. I did that wrong. What do I need to do to correct that? That's a learning opportunity for all of us. None of us are perfect. None of us should strive to be perfect. But if you recognize that setback as a learning opportunity, then you're going to gain from that. Seek help if you need to. Don't be afraid to ask. And I've seen it before, I've seen it so many times where someone says, yeah, my God, if I did this, I'd ask him that, or do it. If you're not sure, ask. Example, I have a friend of mine who owns an excavating company. And what this has got to do with this class is relevant to the fact that I'm trying to share something with you. But he owns an excavating company. He calls me every now and then and says, hey, I need some help. I'm down on manpower. Could you come out and run the dozer for me? Or can you come out and run the crane for me? Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll go do it. It's fun. Big boys playing in the dirt with big toys. So I get out there and I'm doing, but I ask questions constantly. To the point where I even tell the supervisor or the foreman that's on the job site, hey, look, not for nothing, but I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because I don't want to mess up. You're talking about a situation of individuals being hurt or killed where I'm at, and the same thing with you guys in your field. But I ask constantly about what to do. Seek help. Seek help if you need to. Seek help. You don't have all the answers. Seek help. The most important thing, I think, keep learning. Keep learning. Keep pressing on. Keep learning how to be better. Keep learning how to make yourself better, make your guys better, make your team better, make your department better. And I can't really push that any further, honestly, is just keep learning. Even to this day, I've been out 7 years now. And even with this teaching and training and meeting other officers and talking to officers at the classes and stuff like that, I still learn. So, okay, I can learn something to pass on to somebody else. So keep learning, all right? Let's take a break. If you have any questions, throw those questions out there, all right? And we'll address those when we come back. On our end, everything should be okay. On your end, you might want to check. And let me know if not, see what we can do. We've got probably, 4 more maybe that's going to be playing. So if not, if you're having trouble with that, let me know. Anybody else have any questions? I didn't see any questions come up. So if we've got any more questions, let me know and we'll cover those, okay? What we've learned so far and what we've done so far, I hope it's made sense to you, and I hope that it gives you some idea of where we're going to go with this next. If I can get it to move forward, I will. Okay, let's see here. And we'll keep learning. Okay, there's no magic formula to this. Again, we talked about that. I wish there was. I wish that based on all my experience and what I've done in the past, and I had a magic formula that I could put on TV, and me and Mike, I could jump in after he has his pillow commercial, and I can put my commercial up there and make millions. But there's not. There's no magic formula to this. It's just an opportunity for you, if that's what you want to do and that's how you want to be as effective as you can and as efficient as you can, is to learn, is to jump out there and just as they would say, get your hands dirty and go forward. No website to check. You can be as book smart as you want to be. You can read and learn as much as you want, but until you apply it and until you understand your weaknesses and understand what you need to do as a supervisor, as a leader, then that's the way it's going to be. So, and I know some of you probably have thought this, and I know I did. I alluded to it earlier. I don't want to be that bad supervisor. I don't want to be that supervisor that I had that was terrible, just to be honest with you. I mean, terrible in many shapes and forms. And there was probably, I can count 3 that I would never ever want to be like as a human being, well known as supervisor. And I can count one that I don't even know how the guy made it as far as he did. And that's my opinion based on my observations. There's no YouTube video, no quick fix. It's not. It's a learning process that must be continual. From day on, it's a learning process. It's something that you get involved in and you start to work it, and there's a constantly a learning curve that goes with it. I walked into the state office building, as I said. I couldn't even find the tunnel that went from our building over to the state capitol to the governor's office. There's a tunnel, underground tunnel that went all the way over. I didn't know where it was at. Again, like I said, I never spent a lot of time downtown on the third floor until I got the captain's job, but I had to learn that. I had to learn all the things that went with that position, being downtown in headquarters, the proper way to do things. So it was a learning curve for me. And like I said, I had 31 years at the end of the day, and I still, upon those last year or so, I still had to learn a lot of stuff. Some common mistakes when you jump into the supervisory level. Failure to take charge. Honestly, to me, this is one of the top things that will bring you the most problems, is failure to take charge. Again, when I'm out there doing my thing, I'm in charge of me. That's it. I mean, when I get up to go to work, when I show up for work, what I do during work, all those things that encompass what I got to take care of myself is just me. That's it. So now that I become supervisor, especially of a drug unit, because remember, we don't have that tether, and that tether being what? That tether being the radio. 2446, 1020, 2446, you got a call. That whole thing, that's a tether. You're undercover, guys. I didn't have a tether. We would get up in the morning, or I would go 1041 toward duty at whatever time it was. It didn't have to be at 8 o'clock. It could be whenever, depending on what kind of cases I had. I didn't have to call in until noon. Or sometimes I didn't call in at all. So I would be, and I was fortunate enough to work all over the state. I would be in a certain area. They wouldn't hear from me for a couple of days. Then when I did call in, where you at? Where you been? You okay? Yeah, I'm great, no problem. Those things where you have that ability, because now all of a sudden I don't have the blindfold here. I've got to be thinking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. Plus, I'm in charge of 5, 6, 7, or 8 people. So failure to take charge of a situation or failure to make a decision, I would say, that's the tough one. I honestly say this, right, wrong, or indifferent, take charge. Don't be heavy-handed. Don't be anarchist. Don't be a situation where demanding, but take charge of the situation. Show that leadership. Failing to develop people skills, highly important. We talked about communication. So I want to develop people skills. I want to be able to relate to everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. I mean that person that you cannot stand. Come on now, I'm retired, so some of the things I say during this course is coming from experience. I'm one of those instructors that I won't lie to you. I kind of feel like I'm going to give it to you straight. And if you can't deal with that, then we'll. But even if someone you can't tolerate and you're the supervisor, you still have to develop those people skills to be able to relate and communicate to that individual. I used to tell them, I know you may not like me, you may not care for me, that doesn't mean we got to eat lunch together. But for the next 8 hours or the time that you're with me, this is the way it's going to work. And I'm going to work with them. You know, that was one of my things to where I wanted to make that person in my group as successful as I possibly could, even though there was friction. We spent an enormous amount of time dealing our people skills to develop our people skills when we're dealing with bad guys by either training or by communication, or if we're dealing with informants, we talk to them. And some of the times we deal with these folks, those people are really out there. They're hooked on dope. They're on dope. They show up on dope. But we spend an enormous amount of time understanding them, don't we? Their body language, how they talk, how they walk, what they do. So why not do that now that you've made this transition? Why not do that now with the people that you work with? That would be a good thing. Failing to develop people skills is one of the things that's going to get you jammed up. All right. So I'm going to make things hard for you. The other one is trying to be one of the guys. And what do I mean by that? And I catch a lot of flack on this one. I get a lot of pushback when I talk about this one. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure that you have your opinion. Send me a question or send me your opinion on that. Give me something to think about. But trying to be one of the guys. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of times when there's some of the people that I worked with my whole career. There's guys I worked with for 30-some years. And I knew them, they knew me. And it was one of those deals where with our department, sometimes somebody had to either retire or, really mess up in order for it to be an opening. So the openings didn't come real quick. So you had that stair step deal where one day, I'm the subordinate, the next day my buddy's the boss, and we just kept, I'd be his boss one and back and forth. And we also worked out in the field together. We also did things together out in the field. So when you get promoted, seriously now, you get promoted, are you one of the guys still? Are you one of the guys still, or are you now the boss? Well, that's something to think about. I always looked at, and going back to that leadership aspect of leading from the front or leading by example, I try to make sure that I did things the right way for the right reason. I really did. At every step of the way. There's pitfalls where I stumbled and made mistakes, but I corrected those mistakes and tried to move on. I tried to make sure I did things the right way for the right reason. And when I say trying to be one of the guys, I mean this. They're going to bring that up, what you did in the past. Example, let's say you have to jump on somebody or correct somebody for their paperwork, that great thing that we all love to do. Let's say you got to go in and have somebody call them in on the carpet and talk about their paper writing or their case reports. And you throw it out there and say, hey, not for nothing, but you're a little bit behind on your case reports. You're always behind on your case reports. And what are they going to throw back to you? They're going to throw back to you, well, hey, you were too. I remember when we worked together, you were too. So why are you telling me something that you did? You tracking with me? And the other example is this. This is going back, but after the deal was done, usually we'd meet at a local pub or local pizza joint. We'd have a pizza, we'd have a couple pitchers of beer, and we'd all sit there and have a good time. We'd go home. As a supervisor, does that mean you can't do that? Absolutely not. But what it does mean is you can't do it and have over the limit or do something that's going to put you in a situation where don't do as I say, do as I do. If there's a zero tolerance on your department for driving your vehicle, am I going to have a beer? Am I going to have a Diet Coke? That's what I'm getting at. You're going to learn that you're not one of the guys, because then it's going to boil down to this also is when it comes to disciplinary issues or when it comes to situations you have to discipline an inform or a subordinate, my mind went there. A subordinate is that you can't be their friend and their buddy too. You can be associated, you can be your friend. There's guys that I admired. I knew before I got the supervisor's position You know, guys had 20 some years on that I was supervising now, and you go out and you try to be their buddy, try to hang. They don't want the boss hanging around. They're really not. They don't want that stigma. Yeah, personally, one-on-one, they might say, yeah, no problem, but you got to watch that trying to be one of the guy thing. All right, that would be beneficial. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm saying you've made that next step now, so be conscious of that. Failing to delegate. We're talking about an opportunity now for you to utilize what you've learned as a supervisor and work on being in that other lane. What I say about that is you're driving in another lane now. A lot of times what happens, and it happened with me, I was so used to, even when I was a detective, out buying dope and doing things. Then I got to be a sergeant with my squad, and I was out doing things with them and doing this. Then I got to be the first sergeant, but I didn't learn how to let that go. And how many of you will say this? It is failing to delegate. How many will say this? You know what? I'll just do it. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. So what are you doing there? I feel that when you get promoted, you've got enough to learn now in another discipline and not to worry about everything that you did in the past. You have to kind of let that go. Failing to delegate. If you're going to make a decision or you're going to tell somebody to do something or put them out there, delegate that job to someone. And we'll talk about coaching, mentoring, and that a little later on today, this afternoon. But that's what you're doing. By failing to delegate, you're taking away that individual's opportunity to learn the job, to learn how to do things, to be efficient and effective. Remember, it's a team value now. My team, everybody's heard this old cliche, it's a link in the chain, right? I wanted to make my chain as strong as I possibly could. I wanted to make that person better than me. And I wanted them to take that away and run with it. That's the only way to learn. Failing to delegate. And we'll talk about micromanaging in depth later on this afternoon. That kind of falls in that failure to delegate. Not being consistently fair. What's the number one thing that destroys morale? Number one thing that destroys morale is not being fair to everyone, or not being consistently fair. And what do we mean by that? It means the decisions we make, let's be consistent with that to each individual. Our thing was cars and equipment. For whatever reason, the car was the big thing. You know, so well, so-and-so got a new car. How's come I didn't get a new car? How's come I didn't get this? Or I want that piece of equipment, or I didn't get that. If we're going to do that, remember again, I talked to you about communicating with even those people you didn't care for. We have to be consistently fair. Not being consistently fair is going to ruin morale for you in your team, your squad. I talked about making immediate changes in discipline or procedure. That's something that we have to learn to take our time on. And it may be a situation where your chief tells you, oh, yeah, okay, let's look at that one under today's content. I was going to bring it up at the end of the course, but let's bring it up now under this common mistake thing. How are you going to react to your departments now, where now all of a sudden we're recreating police work? So Robert Peel was the one that was known as the modern day policeman who changed policing. How are you going to do it? Yeah, but Tom, that's not up my alley. Yeah, it is. It's my young folks out there, based on what I see and what's going on out there now, they're going to fundamentally change how we do police work. They're going to try. Some states, some cities, and we'll use Milwaukee, for example. They want to defund the police departments, take away our powers, take away our use of immunity, the big one. Is that an immediate change for all? Police officers do not like change. We're creatures of habit, in essence. We do not like change. Making immediate changes in discipline or in procedure. They're going to change that whole format. How would you go about doing it? You go into your squad, and let's say your squad has been a less than productive squad. The individual that was the supervisor there before you didn't bring them up to speed and use them essentially to a point where they just kind of did what they wanted. The chief made some moves and took that person out and put you in and said, this is what I want. I want all these things to change. And I want you to do it. How do I go about that? Am I making immediate changes in that? Am I making immediate changes in the discipline or procedure? I would say you would have to take time to implement things like that. You have to get them to buy into that, because you're going to get pushback. I know one of the things that me and the major did when I got promoted downtown was our detectives were getting a little lax in their appearance, honestly. The guys, the polo shirts were good, t-shirts, shorts, flip-flops. And these weren't narcs. These were regular detectives. And we implemented that we wanted them to start wearing ties, shirts and ties. Kind of dress it up a little bit, back to a little bit of the old school. And they didn't like it at all. Got a lot of pushback from that. Simple things like changing the way we do our cases or the way we go about our business and operation plans came out. We made changes in that, and they didn't like that either. So I guess what I'm saying to you is this: be cautious in how you go about making those immediate changes or how we go about changing things. But one thing for sure is think about what I said about for my young officers out there. I honestly don't know what to say, because change is coming. And if you're in the supervisor capacity, you're going to be the one that's helping instrument that and making that happen. So I would start thinking about that soon. Okay. Failing to listen to others. I would ask others what they thought. I would ask what they thought. And an example is I went downtown, and I had not only did I have detectives and sworn officers, I had civilians and the intel section and everything that I had no clue about, and had to learn about certain aspects of that position or that job. And I remember we've had to do the silver alerts or amber alerts or things like that, intelligent flyers. And one of the guys came up to me and he says, "Hey, Cap," he says, "I got this intelligence flyer I got to get out of here, and I need you to review it." So he comes in, he sits down, and I look at it. I'm checking spelling, grammar, stuff like that, because that's all I knew what to look for. And finally, I just looked up at him and I asked him, I said, "Hey," I says, "how long have you been in this section?" "Oh, 10 years. "How many of these have you done?" "Oh gosh, I can't even tell you." "Oh, really?" And what I told him was this: "Well, I trust your judgment. The only thing I ask you to do is let me know when they're going out. So if somebody asks me, I have some idea of what's happening, okay?" And the guy looked at me like I had just promoted him to king. Honestly, I delegated that back to him, trusting him that he would do his job and he knew what he was doing. By not listening to him and telling people, "Well, no, you need to do it this way, or you need to do it that way." Remember First Sergeant Landis. What did you think about I'm going to present that to them in a way that it's going to let them think about what they need to do. Put it on them so they learn from that experience. All right. Not keeping your boss informed. You've got to pass it up. What goes up goes up. What comes down, we all know what runs downhill. Not keeping your boss informed. We have to be able to communicate with our bosses to let them know, even those ones you don't really care for, to let them know what's going on. That's a common mistake, because I think what happens is we get so engrossed in our business of what we're trying to do, and we're all so busy that we don't articulate and run it up. That probably, for some of the other departments and agencies that work close in hand, that's really not such a major deal. But for those that have their bosses are maybe in another area or farther away, you got to keep it in. The one thing with that is, and I'll give you this, is emails. Emails. I can send an email to my boss articulating what's going on and let them know what's on. And what do I benefit from that is this. When I send an email, it's got a time stamp and a date stamp on it, correct? So I'll send that to my boss. Then I'll take that email and I put that in a file under his name or her name. So if it comes back, that's what I did. This is a common mistake that we make. We got to make sure that we keep our bosses informed. Making serious administrative errors by not getting enough information from your boss about their expectations falls back to that communications. What do you want me to do? I'm not a mind reader. I'm not. I wish I was. It goes back to what I talked about with my friend who has the excavating company. You've got to tell me step by step what you want, especially if I'm not used to working with you, or especially if I'm not used to your communications. Being new, going to that boss, if he expects me to know everything, then he's mistaken. Ain't gonna happen. Even the things that I do know, I want him to spell out to me and tell me what I need to do. What you'll find sometimes is, well, just go do it. Well, okay, that's great, but what do you want? In order to be successful, I have to know exactly what's expected of me from them. How do you want me to do this? What do you want me to do? Even fall back to the who, what, when, why, and how aspect of policing. To do that when you communicate with your supervisor. That's the one thing that I highly recommend. And it may be redundant. It may be a situation where they think, geez, I don't know how to do anything. No, really no. I think I kind of know how to do it, but how do you want me to do it? How do you want this done? What do I need to know? What are the particulars? Failing to effectively use time. Big one. And for that, where am I at? Am I still the detective out there trying to make cases? So I'm going to take that. I'm going to be out there making cases, working surveillance, doing stuff with my guys, being one of the guys. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to be a supervisor. I have to use my paperwork. I've got to do my cases. I've got to read cases. I've got to read protocol. I've got to do ops plans. I've got to read, right? How can you do both effectively? Oh, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, Tom, no problem. And you can do it, but can you do it effectively? That's where the pitfall comes also. One of the major ones in this group of common mistakes. And as I moved up, there's a few sergeants that I had to try to explain this to them. Because the thing about it is, if you're the supervisor and you have all these new disciplines and you're not doing your job, is it fair to the subordinate? No. And it all kind of comes in a circle, doesn't it? To where I'm a leader, well, I'm leading from the front, I'm leading by example, I'm leading to do this. But if you're not doing your job and you're telling this individual that they need to do their job, where are you falling? Tracking with me? So my suggestion is this. I always had my ducks lined up on the administrative side, always. And it falls back to the discipline of being patient and able to delegate, like we talked about before, delegate that to those individuals. That's the purpose. That's what we want to do, to avoid this mistake. Failing to effectively use my time, because how many times have you gotten in a rut, even on this side, for my non-supervisors who want to be supervisors, or for you supervisors out there, one classic thing I can use is this. I can use the performance evaluation. How many of you out there do performance evaluations? This is a classic. Because what happens is when you're doing everything else, then it comes to the performance eval, which comes out next week. And you sit down. Now remember, I had 168 people, plus the 300 and some that I had to sign off also with the major. But the 168 were my direct. So when it come to evaluation time, and I had to eval these people, what do I say? If I'm not effectively using all my time effectively on everything that I had to do, it comes down to that week before I got to turn it in. What do I say? If I'm not keeping track of it on the way. Case reports. I got to read case reports. I got to read evidence reports. I got to do all the administrative stuff. And I'm behind on all my case reports, or I'm behind on checking off things. What do I do at the end of when it comes time to turn them in? I rush through all that stuff. On the case reports, if an individual, and I know you guys have a computer thing and it all goes to e-case and all that, but if I've got to review their performance, or I've got to review that case to see that they're following protocol and they're doing things safely, and I review that case and I sign off of it, or let's say the ops plan, and I look at that ops plan and I hurry through it and I sign off for it. Once I sign it, what am I saying? Correct, I own it. And if I didn't effectively do that and something happens, where do I fall? You tracking with me? Again, I have to have everything I do in order. Plus, I've got to deal with everybody else's stuff. Plus, I got to deal with everybody else's problems. So effectively using your time, think about that. How do I most effectively use my time to get my job done and to do it correctly? To where I'm not sitting at home at 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock trying to catch up. How can I get it done there? Okay, try that. Think about that. There's another video here, and it's the little round top, and it's about the Civil War, Confederate Union. The reason I play this, and I'm going to continue playing it, because it has a specific thing that it shows leadership skills. I am a history buff. I always will be a history buff. And this is part of history that we evolved and learned from. The thing that I look at, been to Gettysburg, as a matter of fact, apparatus. We just got back from West Virginia. Wife and I went on a 7-day vacation down there, went through the battlegrounds, went through Harper's Ferry, the whole thing. Absolutely amazing to me. I love history, and I love to follow how things went. I watched Ulysses Grant on the History Channel. Fantastic. Learn something really from that. So with that, and I know there's 500 different video clips and that. We were soldiers and on and on and on. I like this. I like this. I like the way they put it together. I like the way the actors portrayed it. And the one thing, upon showing these videos, I'd like for you to look at the Colonel. Through this whole series of, I think there's like 4 clips. Through this whole series, look at the Colonel. Look at what his response is. Look at how he handles things. Look at his direction, how he communicates, what he does, how he delegates. Because we're talking about all those things we talked about before. And we're trying to move forward with that in a learning way so that you understand what we're talking about. So look at what the colonel does. Look at how his demeanor is. From leading from example to listening to his people, to depending on his people, to delegating. Seriously, listen to what he says. Look at his actions. And we'll talk about it a little bit after the video. Is that fair? Okay. Okay. Kind of let you know some of the things we talked about if you watched his demeanor. Was approached and told that it's on you. If this place goes down, which is in Gettysburg, if it goes down, we're going to lose the whole war. We're going to lose this whole fight, this whole battle. So putting a little bit of, actually couldn't put a throw in it, no pressure, right? But articulated to him what he thought, what he wanted done, what needed to be done. And the colonel listened to that. Once the colonel listened to it, but did the colonel have second thoughts? Yeah. The last what? The last, what do you want me to do? Basically. But then again, like we talked about communication skills, it showed it here. His communication, his demeanor, asking other folks their opinion. What do we do? Relying on those individuals that he knew. Even to the point of where the sarcasm came in, well, the fight's at the front door, it appears we're at the back door. What? Well, explain to them too, because we're going to have that also. I like it because it gets down to the point where it explains and he explains and it explains what we talked about communication, about being direct, being able to work under pressure. That's what we're going to experience when we get out there. When you get, you're doing it now, but you're going to be in a different position as a supervisor. All right. I hope you picked up some things on that you looked at, that you understood what we were talking about to this point. All right. Principles of leadership. This is my favorite one on the right. Learn to work with people you wouldn't go to lunch with. I can say that now. I'm retired. They're not going to, well, they might hold my pension check up, but I doubt it. Learn to work with people you wouldn't go to lunch with. If you can work with those folks, you can work with those people that you would. It goes back to what we talked about earlier. People skills, learning people skills. Know your job. What is your job? Your job. What lane am I driving in? We all seem to want to make that grand tour of driving in the slow lane one day, and we get in the middle lane, the driving lane, then we're in the fast lane. Then we want to get back in the middle lane because our exit's over here. What lane are you driving in? Know your job. Is it your job to worry about that person's job above you? Or that other discipline? Or that other individual? What's your job? And it's right there if you have trouble in black and white in the job description area. Know your job. This is my job right here. I'm going to take care of my job. I try not to worry about the major's job or the colonel's job. I want to worry about my job, about me. What do I do? Because if I haven't experienced officer out there that's been a supervisor for a while, you've got to know your job, because sometimes the people that are there that you don't want to go to lunch with, they'll try to trip you out. They'll ask you stuff about policies, procedures, or this or that. And if you don't know the rules, you can't play the game, right? So know your job. Your abilities. What are my abilities? What are my abilities? What do I bring to the table? What am I going to bring? Am I going to bring fact that I came from logistics? Last week I was in there counting hubcaps, and today I'm in charge of the drug unit, or I'm a supervisor in the drug unit. Do I bring a lot of knowledge with me? Do I bring a lot of skills? I work the wire room a lot, Now, do I bring a lot of technical skills? Do I bring a lot of street level skills? Do I bring skills in surveillance? What are my abilities? And if I don't have those abilities, what do I have to do? I have to learn. I have to depend on those out there to show me and to teach me. For those that have been out there and done the job, I was really good at buying dough, really good at surveillance, not so good at the technical aspect. So I'm going to have to catch up and brush up on that. Know the abilities of others you work with. That's the thing that comes in that we'll talk about: coaching, mentoring, bringing them up. Know the abilities of others you work with. What are they capable of? Can I send that individual into an area that's going to make that individual uncomfortable? Can I have him perform something or do something that he hasn't been coached up on, or hasn't been taught, or he hasn't had the experience? Where do I plug him in at? How do I use him? Do I put a guy that gets in my car and starts fidgeting with my radio, looking in my glove box, looking all over everywhere? What is it called? ADHD type thing. Do I put him in a surveillance van in the middle of nowhere? Or down in an area that troubled area? No. I have to know those abilities of people at work so I can plug them in. The one thing, though, too, I want you to think about, not only can I plug them in there, but what do I need to get them up to that skill? Remember, what's my expectation of them? All right. Deal fairly with others. Heard that before. Be consistent, right? Deal fairly with everybody. Everybody. I want to be fair to everybody. I really do. I want to be fair to those folks that believe in me or that trust me. And I want to be fair to those folks that don't believe in me and don't trust me. Because it's up to me to build that rapport with them. Maintain teamwork. I don't know about you, but that was probably one of the most effective ways to get stuff done, is that teamwork aspect where, and I want you to think about this, and you may be one of them. We all have that person we can depend on. We all have that go-to guy or that go-to gal. And let's say we've got 10 members in our group, in our squad, or whatever you want to call it. And 3 of them are low speed, high speed, low drag. I mean, they're my go-getter people. Remember, we talked about delegating. So if I don't get something done, I'm going to send them to do it. I'm going to have them do it. I'm going to have them do it. Well, let me ask you this. Is it fair to have those 3 do everything and these 7 stand there holding the horses? In my situation, I wanted everybody involved. And I'll tell you an example of maintaining the teamwork aspect of it is when I had the interdiction guys. I had the interdiction guys, and they would go out and they did wonderful things, some of them. And it's just like everybody. It's just like police officers. But as a supervisor, how am I going to maintain that teamwork? Because if we go out and buy dough, and I go out and I negotiate a dope buy, the amounts are relevant because they're all the same, just more paperwork. Okay, we're back. You guys have any questions? I can't possibly do it doing that good a job to where there's not any questions on there. If you're writing them down and something comes to mind after this presentation today, then write them down and we'll introduce it and look at it tomorrow. See what we got. So anybody hopefully clear on what we talked about here about making decisions and being consistent in that. So that's a good thing. If we can do that, that'd be great. To make sure that we're moving forward with our supervision skills and our leadership. We're going to talk about some leadership styles from J. Edward Deming. I don't know if you're familiar with Deming, but he is one of the individuals after real, very, very talented business mind. He was instrumental in helping rebuild Japan back after World War II. And they basically recruited him from, come over from the US to help them out to rebuild and redo their structure. And we all know what happened there. He was instrumental in helping rebuild their economy and bringing them back. I want to do some research on him. It's a good thing. Look him up and kind of introduce yourself to that. Don't try to follow his writing because he's an engineer. Maybe you can. I can, a little bit over my head, but very instrumental in helping. And he came up with these things and these leadership styles that I kind of jump on and I use in this course. There's others out there. These pretty much follow the same suit. So the one is coercive, authoritarian, pace setter, coach, democratic, and laissez-faire. If you want to write these down, you can. Just kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Also, with this, when we talk about this, there are some things out there that you can involve yourself in when we're talking about learning. I do a supervisor's testing questionnaire in the in-person course, and it's probably it's 20 some pages, but it's a self-assessment test. And I'm sure you guys have heard of Myers-Briggs. You've heard of the DISC assessment personality test. I took both over a course of time. I've also taken the one that we hand out through our teachings here. And I find it beneficial to do that because it gives you an idea of where you stand, where your weak points are and where your strengths are. So if you have an opportunity to try the Myers-Briggs is basically for you career building, team building, leadership training, recruitment, and that sort of thing, which will help you in your supervisory position, your leadership position. The DISC assessment personality test helps you determine your personality there when you're dealing with others. Remember, being a people person, when you're dealing with others, that will help you. It will also help you determine who you've got working for you. Remember, we want to assess our personnel. We want to put them in a position to be successful, for them to succeed. I talked about, I don't want to put an AHD guy, AHD, in a van in the middle of nowhere, in a surveillance van. That ain't going to work. So it gives you an idea of, we talked about plugging people in and putting them where they need them, where it's going to be most effective. So think about that. If you have an opportunity to get that. If not, I'll give you my email address tomorrow. I'll remind myself, write myself a note, and I'll send it to you. You send me an email, and I'll send you a link to it, and you can download it or whatever you want to do and take a test for that. But it's really beneficial in showing where your strengths are and your weaknesses. Some folks take it and they think, oh man, I thought I would be strong in this area. I'm a little bit stronger in this area and weak in this area. And some of it depends on what you're doing now. If you're more task oriented, you're just out there running, running informants, buying dope, doing things like that, then you're going to test high in that area. If it's less time effective, efficiency, effective use of time in that manner, the managerial aspect, then you're going to be weak. So it just shows you that where do I need to build that up? You know, what do I need to work on? If I'm good here, I'm good here. But where do I need to work on? All right. These different kind of leadership styles, I'm sure you're familiar with them, and we're going to run through these. Coercive, extremely directive, extremely directive. When you're telling somebody what to do, you can see we got the little drill sergeant on the right-hand side. This is going to be a little bit more in a situation of, if you think back to your recruit school or your academy, when you had this coercive direction, extremely direct. They're going to tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And that could be some of you. This is a coercive attitude to have, extremely directive. You do not empower subordinates by being coercive, because again, you're telling them what to do all the time. You're not giving them any opportunity to think on their own. You're not giving an opportunity for them to build up their experiences with that. So that's what you do not, it does not empower subordinates when you use this fashion. There's a one-way communication. Remember, we talked about communication skills. This is one way. This is, you're going to go do this. I don't want to hear anything else. Boom. They issue orders. They give out orders and they tell you what to do. Authoritarian. They are directive, which gives directions, gives you an idea of where you want to go, what you do. It basically falls back on experience knows best. Hey, I'm the experienced one here. I know what's best to do. This is what. Well, again, we're talking about what? My way or the highway. Limited two-way communication. Remember, we got a sender and a receiver. So if I send that message out, somebody's got to receive it, but it's got to come back to me too. We talked about on some of the mistakes we make is not keeping our bosses informed, right? Limited two-way communication. Limited empowerment of subordinates, taking away that power, giving them the opportunity to go out and learn, giving them an opportunity to do things. With that, though, you're going to go out and they're going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to screw up. None of us are perfect. But in that teaching, training, coaching moment, that's going to give them the empowerment. Remember, we wanted them to buy into it and be responsible, right? Any of these are going to let them do that, not so much. This is my favorite. Actually, it's not my favorite. It's my least favorite. Laissez-faire. Working retired, basically not involved, don't really care. They are non-directive. Go with the flow. How many have heard the, I've got to go along just to get along? Have you heard that before? One-way communications from the bottom. Bottom-up emphasis. Oh, yeah, you go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do what you got to do, but don't get me in trouble. All right, you go ahead and do what you got to do. Don't get me in trouble. Please try not to be this way if you can. Again, I emphasize the fact that I want you to think about making the decision. Make the decision with the information I had at the time, or we. This is the best decision we can make. I want you to make a decision, if you would, please. This here is just basically someone that's just there, occupied space and time. And we don't want to be that way. The most important one right here is coaching. I think directive style, but encouraging. I'm going to build that subordinate up. I'm going to build the teamwork. I'm going to build this whole thing up by coaching. Any little league coaches out there, or anyone that's involved in coaching, or anybody that's involved in mentoring, this is where you kind of want to be. This is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be there to provide an opportunity for that person to be successful. I did. He's going to make you look good. It's going to make the team look good. He's going to make your division, your section look good. This is what you want to strive for, I think, my personal favorite. Because I want to be able to build that individual up. And one of the things that I strive for, and you folks know this for a fact, we couldn't pick our own personnel. I couldn't go out and say, hey, I'd like for you to be in the drug unit. Why don't you come on over? Yeah, it didn't work that way. But because most of the people that were out there that were A personalities, doing their job, writing a bunch of tickets, making a bunch of contacts. The road division didn't want to lose those people. The investigators, they're out there making cases, proactive cases, go-getters, people out there doing their job and doing it well. They didn't want to lose them to the drug unit, right? Because we were a bunch of, what did the one lieutenant call me? Scumbag? Yeah, to my face at the post. I was in there doing paperwork one time, and he came in and said, hey, what's a scumbag like you doing in my post? So I had to have the captain call the lieutenant to remind him about we all work kind of together. But what I'm getting at here is that I want to build that person up, and we couldn't get the cream of the crop sometimes. But what would happen is, and you're familiar with this, what would happen is they would send us, how do I put it? They would send us the least productive individuals out there. The troublemakers is what they would send us, or those people that couldn't get it, or the people they didn't want around. They would send them to the drug unit. They would exile them to the drug unit. And we'd get some folks that would come in because we always needed help. And we'd get some folks to come in. I remember sitting down with them and I'd ask them, since you're here, what do you want to achieve? Well, I don't know. Well, what would interest you here? Buying dope, running a surveillance van, technical, working in the back of the lab? What would be? Well, I kind of like the buying dope thing. Okay. So right then, I'm talking to that person to try to get them involved to tell me. Remember, we talked about that. You tell me what you want to do, and I'm going to try to get you there. Because the thing that was important to me was this. I loved getting someone in the unit that was basically pushed out and sent over against their will, not wanting to. And when they came in, they didn't have real good things to say about their supervisor they had before. And the thing I liked to do was I would go back and look at their evaluation and see what was written about them, about how they performed, about what they did, about disciplinary actions, about this, that, and familiarize myself with that individual. And then I would call the supervisor. I say, hey, tell me something a little bit here about Billy Bob. He's blah, 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 and you can't get him, blah, you can't do this, and he won't blah. Just all negative. So I'd go back and I'd find out what his niche was, what he wanted to do and how he wanted to develop himself. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to create an environment where he wanted to come to work. I wanted to create an environment where he wanted to come and be there, be part of the team, be responsible. And I did. I was successful with that, very successful. And what would happen was when that old boss would ask him, well, hey, what's it like out in the drug unit working for Ferguson? Oh, man, it's cool. It's good. I like it. I like it because he gave up on it. The old supervisor gave up on that individual. So it doesn't boil down to the fact that that individual was not good. Was it relevant? No. Who didn't do their job? Supervisor. So keep that in mind when we're talking about coaching. I think that is one of the most important things you can do because it will help you bring together every aspect that you're looking for when you're trying to be engaged with people because you're involved with them. So keep that in mind. Keep the coaching thing there. Democratic. We're talking here about democratic consensus-based style. Everybody's involved. Everybody's involved. It empowers subordinates. Well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Well, what would you do? Well, how many times have you done this? Well, I've done hundreds of them. Well, then use your own judgment. I respect your judgment. I trust your judgment. It empowers the subordinates because it lets them do things that they're used to doing. It helps them get involved. And it builds teamwork. Pace setter. What about a pace setter? Is someone who do it yourself I'm going to do it myself. You know what? Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll do it myself. Doesn't value teams because I'm going to do it myself. So when you become, and how many, it's kind of a loaded question, but I can't see you. You can only see me, but how many of you are a pace setter in this fashion? How many have that here? Just don't worry, I'll do it myself. And take away from that individual the opportunity to learn by doing it yourself. This does not value the team. What other word or what other can we say to applies to someone that may be a pace setter? What can you say by just doing it yourself? By overseeing, I'm just going to happen. It'd be micromanaging, wouldn't it? How many micromanagers we got out there? Think about it. No one type leader or leadership style will, you can't, this will not one thing is going to be your base. Not one style is going to base. It all changes depending on the situation. So all the things we've talked about can be used. Laissez-faire, not so much. All the other stuff we've talked about is going to be, there's a continuum. It's going to be fluid. You may use coercive because you want to get something done. Let's say you're serving a search warrant or something happens. You got to be directed. You got to tell people. Remember, let's go back to the colonel. Okay, let's go back to the colonel. Where do you want me to be? What do you want? You be here, you do this, you do that. We have to use that. The authoritarian we may use pieces and parts of it that help us do our jobs, that gets that communication up there so those individuals can do their job safely. Safely, right? Video number 3, I think it should be number 2, but little round top again. And if you would please try to see again what we talked about when we talked about using all of these disciplines into the communication, coercive, directive, bring that into play. As you do that too, as you watch these videos, not only look at the colonel, but look at other individuals involved in these scenarios, in these little clips. The lieutenant, the dark-haired lieutenant, the old sergeant, other people involved. Look at the things that they do. Look at the leadership of the colonel, how everyone is looking to him for the leadership. Those that don't are incapable of being leaders. Look at their attitude and their demeanor, right? Okay. Okay. Again, looking at that too, and the colonel had people come in and, we're losing bullets. We don't have ammo. We don't have this, but we bringing in everybody and he's asking their opinions and he's receiving that information. And we've been there before, you guys, too. When you're out there doing your job and things kind of go south. Okay, who do I depend on? What do I do? I use those different leadership tactics in order to get my folks together and put it together. The one thing that I would say too is that I wasn't afraid to use it. I'm just going to say that up front, that I was pretty much task oriented, and if I would have you go somewhere and do something, then I'd expect you to do it. And I wasn't afraid to use those different disciplines in order to get something done. There's one thing too, is that if you build that rapport with your folks and they know who you are and your leadership style and what you do, getting it done is one thing, but you can get it done and still go have a cup of coffee after the fact. It's not personal, and we're not taking it personal, okay? You must be fair and consistent on that. Officers should know what to expect. What to expect. What shall we do? What's going to be the outcome? What should we expect in this moment? Because I've laid that down. I've communicated them. That's what I want you to do. So their expectations is coming from, what would Ferguson do? What would Ferguson say? Or how would this be handled? So we have to be fair, consistent, and they got to know what to expect. So I've got to be able to articulate what I want them to do. And don't take for granted the fact that they may think you know what they want, but they're not sure. Now, in that regard, being police officers with being that A-type personality, am I going to turn around and go, well, hey, boss, I don't know what you're talking about? No, they're going to drift off and assume that this is what you want done. All right, so let's make sure that we get that passed. You got to develop a reputation of being trustworthy and fair dealing. There's no way that you cannot be trustworthy, that you can't be fair in dealing with everybody. And you have to maintain that trustworthiness with that confidence with your folks. Because the last thing you want is you don't want people believing in you, or they come to you and tell you something, or something comes up and you can't be trusted with it. As far as cops are concerned, I don't know a cop that can keep a secret. If you know one, let me know, honestly, because we love to tell somebody, or our partner or best friend or our buddy, what happened or what this happened. If someone comes to you and they give you something in confidence, highly recommend you keep it there. If it's a situation now, if it's a situation where it's illegal violation of SOP, something of that nature, then absolutely not. But if it's something that's in confidence that they want to instill in you, please keep that under your cuff. Credible, you need to know you need to know enough about the jobs of the people you supervise. I got to know everything about all of it. I really do. I can't be delegating someone to do something or tell somebody to do something, especially tell them how to do it, if I have no idea how it's done. Repeat, go back to when I went downtown as a captain on the intelligence forms and the silver alerts and the amber alerts. Not a clue, but the person that was doing it had been doing it for a long time. I trust your judgment. So in that capacity, I've given them responsibility, and I've told them that I trust them. I trust what they're going to do and their judgment. Again, good communicator. I've got to be a good communicator. There's no way that I can go through this and not be a good communicator. I have to be able to communicate with my folks and understand where they're coming from, and they will understand where I'm coming from, and they will know that. It's funny that the communication thing comes up a lot, is that, and as some of you can relate to this, is you work with an individuals long enough, whether it be the team, whether it be in a supervisor capacity, team leader, what have you. If you work with them long enough, you anticipate what they're going to say or what they're going to do. It's a funny thing. I know that the mentor I was talking about earlier, we did a thing where we did some murder for hires, and we did probably it kind of had a run on murder for hires. And he was doing a murder for hire, and we had contacted one of the back in the day when they were a little bit friendlier. You could kind of somewhat trust them. We contacted one of the individuals from the local news station and had that anchor person ride with us in the surveillance van to do this meet. And we were sitting at the McDonald's parking lot like we always do. And the mentor, he was talking to the bad guy, and the news anchor was in the van, and I was running the periscope with the recorder on it. And she says, well, you can't see the guy's face because the bad guy had his back to us. I says, hold on for a minute. Because I knew that the mentor was going to manipulate him to get him to turn around. Or if you're doing a case, you can hear what's going on over the mirror or over the cell phone, and you know kind of what's going on. Those communication skills come about being together and communicating all the time. All right. So you have to be a good communicator and know, not anticipate, but know what you're giving to that individual. You need both verbal and nonverbal skills. Remember, we're dealing with other police officers. We're dealing with other police officers. So maybe the subordinate has been to the Reed Intelligence School, or he's been to reading deceptive body language training also. And you're trying to get across to that individual what you want to do. I know for a fact that they see that and they read that in you. Example, I had one of the female officers that worked diversion. It was a doctor thing. They worked all doctors. And we had a run on pain clinics back at probably early 90s or so, in their mid 90s. And she worked diversion. And it came to a situation where she came in one day, and I called her in the office and said, hey, come on in and let me know how your cases are going. And this is the God's truth. She looked at me in the eye and said, why? You don't care anyway. So, well, what do you mean? Well, every time I start talking about diversion cases, if it's not the big three, cocaine, marijuana, or heroin, your eyes glaze over. You don't care. What was she telling me? She's telling me the truth. She's exactly right. So she came in and we talked for a long time, and I apologized to her. I apologized to the fact that I uninterested, acted uninterested. She got that perception that I was uninterested. So I got to step up my game, all right? So both the verbal and nonverbal skills, you got to make sure you keep track of that. Make sure that you show that you're attentive to those individuals. You need to get your points across and have them understood. I always have them repeat it back to them, or I always repeat it back to whomever was giving me the direction. So that way I knew that I was on board with stuff. Two reasons. One, I wanted to do it right. And two, I wanted to cover my backside because I wanted to make sure that I was clear. Talk well and listen well. The one thing that you can't do is you can't talk and listen at the same time. Impossible. Impossible. Talk well and listen well. If you have a question, ask. This is an important part right here, I think, especially nowadays. And when I say nowadays, I mean now, in this environment. Where's my balance? Where's my balance? What am I doing to be able to balance my workload, my life load, and my family load? Where's my balance? How can I balance that out? Today, tomorrow, in the future, what do I need to do? How can I get more effective, get better use of time? How can I work on this up here? This mindset I have. Where's my balance? I've got to find balance. Because if not, you're going to burn yourselves out. And you're going to get that I don't care attitude, and that's going to follow you everywhere you go, and it's going to trickle down to your subordinates. If you don't care, why do they care? If I'm out of balance or I'm out of kilter, you got to find your balance. Training is part of your job. Where do I go? What do I do? How can I improve? Yeah, but you know, for training, it's a pain in the butt. I don't like to go to training. You know, I got to go to court. I got to go do this. I got to do that. And never, ever stop learning. Never, ever stop learning. Learn as much as you can and find out as much as you can. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, honestly, folks, it's going to be on you. It's going to be on you with all these changes coming about and working in the environment and the world in which we live now. Is going to be on you as far as the future of policing. It's going to be on you. So, hey, you got to learn and find out as much as you can and be as best and as effective and efficient as you can. The challenges of tomorrow will be different from those of today. It's going to change. That's the cool thing I thought about working where I did in narcotics. It was yeah, you're buying dope every day in this, but it was a different environment, different geographical area, different people, different attitudes, different day. It was different. That's kind of like why we're cops, because it changes. Okay, I'm not on an assembly line doing the same thing over and over and over again. It changed up, which made me think, which made me prepare for things. So that's where you want to be. Trust. To receive trust, you must give trust. Make sense? To receive trust, you must give trust by interacting honestly and sharing important information. Back to what we talked about earlier. Never breach an employee's confidence. Ever. Again, like I said, unless it's a situation where there's malfeasance or there's criminal activity or something like that, you've got to. But as far as anyone comes in with something that they need to talk to you about, try not to do that. Try not to go and tell your buddy, because there's an old game we used to play in the Air Force. We used to plant a seed and tell somebody something and wait and see how long it came back to us. And if that person did that, there's no confidence in them. And it's the same thing we do now. Same thing police officers will do now, because they want you to be trustworthy in that. Let's talk a little bit about micromanaging. Actually, let's talk a lot about it. How many folks out there are micromanagers? Put your hands down. Tells your team that you don't trust them. Why would it tell them that you don't trust them? Why would it tell your team that you don't trust them if you're a micromanager? Because you're doing everything yourself. You're always questioning and asking them what they're doing, how they're doing it, when they're doing it. Makes everyone involved frustrated. Why does it make them frustrated? Where's the frustration come from? Because you're always looking at what they're doing. You're always wondering what's going on. In order to do that, when you're micromanaging, you're not delegating. You're not giving them the freedom to do their jobs. You're not trusting them. Remember, we fall back on trust. You're not trusting them to do their jobs. It prevents your employees from developing skills. If I always do it for you, if I reassign someone to it, then they're never going to learn. If I always choose cases for individuals and I leave Bob in the evidence room for the next ever, he's never going to learn. The one thing that you may want to think about too is when you do this, remember the 10 officers and I got 3 guys working and I got 7 guys holding the horses? They're going to continue to hold the horses. What I need, or what I needed, was if someone didn't show that person or micromanaging these people and you're letting that person go, you're doing that person an injustice also. If you are a micromanager, what do you do to stop micromanaging? The number one thing is to get over yourself. Get over yourself. And I talked about that ego that we have. That's one thing that we have to get over ourselves. And we have to get over ourselves in that transition of where we're going from out there running and gunning and making the buys and doing the stuff on the street to now Now we are the supervisors. And that's my break timer. And we got to get over that and get over ourselves. We can all rationalize why we do what we do. And some holds true for the same holds true for micromanagers. Get over yourself, honestly, and trust in those folks that are doing things. If they're not doing it to your expectation, maybe they don't meet your expectation. Maybe they will never meet your expectation. But it's your job to do what? To bring them up, to get the best that you can get from them. All right. You want to take a break? I do. We'll take 10 minutes on that and we'll be back. Again, if anybody's got any questions or anything, please let me know. Send some questions because I know I'm not doing that great of a job to where nobody has a question. So we'll do that. So we'll be back here shortly. Okay. Okay, we're back. Anybody got any questions or anything that we talked about that you want to kind of go back over again? Like I said, raise your hands or I'll get back with you. At the end of the day, I'll give you my email address, and then if something comes up this evening or something you need to verify or clarify, let me know, please. Thank you. Micromanagers. What chronic micromanagers might say: it will save me time if I just do it myself. So in that regard, as a supervisor, and you're supervising other individuals, and you remember we're talking about driving in my lane, all right? What am I supposed to be doing? If I'm doing other people's work, am I getting my work done? That goes into time management thing. Am I getting my work done? Also, if I do it myself, what am I doing to that individual? I'm taking away from them. I'm taking away the opportunity to do that. And if I do that, then what do I do with them? Where do they go? What do they do? So things like that. What they really mean is, I don't believe it's worth my time to let them try because they won't get it right anyway. Maybe so. Maybe so. Are they going to be successful every time they get it wrong? No, I don't really know a person out there, and there's a few probably, that if you spend time with and try to mentor and coach, especially a police officer, someone that's in your unit, or it may be a new individual in the unit, or somebody that's been there for a while, that you inherited that individual or those individuals, and you're trying to get them up to speed. And you sit down and spend time with them and work with them, that they're not going to give you some time. They're not going to try to improve themselves, especially if you let them buy into it. So that's what I say. Don't believe it's worth my time to let them try because they won't get it right anyway. Talk about coaching. Talk about bringing them up. Too much at stake to allow this to go wrong. You know what? This is too important for this to get screwed up. Can I manage that from afar? Can I keep in touch, or can I keep involved with the individual on this major case? Yes. Can I direct them? Can I lead them in the right direction? If they start drifting over, can I bring them back? Absolutely. Do I have to micromanage them? No. Because what I'm saying is I don't trust them to do their jobs according to my standards. What are your standards? Are your standards way up here? Remember, am I one of the guys, or am I a new supervisor, or what? Are my standards so high that nobody can achieve them? Are my standards so high that I can't achieve them? I just set them that way because I'm the boss. No, they may not be able to achieve that. They may only be able to come here. I don't trust them to do their jobs according to my standards. Maybe my standards are too daggone high. It's my credibility. The line, if we don't get this done on time, it looks bad on me. It's not about you anymore. Remember, take the ego, throw it away. It's not about you anymore. It's about the team. It's about the individuals there. The work won't get done unless I constantly prod them. So are you the evil taskmaster? Are there other ways to get them motivated to get the job done? Deadlines, timelines. Hey, I'm giving you a couple, 3 or 4 days to look into that and get back with me. And leave them alone. How are we progressing? Where are you going? Not constantly badgering them. If I'm not involved, they mess up. How many people, be honest with yourself, are looking at some of these things and going, whew, yeah, I kind of fall in this category. Hopefully, if you do, I've got you thinking about what I may do to get out of this, or what I can do to stop being a micromanager. The one time I yielded some control, because that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Control, huh? That's what we're talking about. That's the big thing. I can control this, or I can control that, or I can control. You can't control anything. Only thing you control is what? Yourself, right? But I can help direct and point them in the right direction. I can't control. I can't control if they get it done or not. I can only entrust in that they do. All right. There was a mistake, and I'm not willing to take that risk again. We're going to make mistakes. As long as as long as it involves making mistakes that doesn't involve safety. Okay, and that sometimes happens. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to put down the wrong address on the search warrant. We're going to put down the wrong address on an affidavit. We're going to have typos. We're going to have errors. I'm going to make a wrong judgment call. But based on the information I had at the time, right? But that's going to happen. They're going to make mistakes. You cannot, nobody's perfect. And you've got to learn from those mistakes. My boss wants me to be heavily involved in my team's work. That's okay, isn't it? Can I stay involved by knowing what's going on, by communicating, by seeing what's going on, by being there? Yeah, I don't have to be right in their face. I don't have to be right. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I hated that. I hated that. I work better on my own. I don't need a lot of supervision. And when we talk about this micromanaging thing, there's a big difference between fully engaged in what we're talking about directly, I mean, assault, boom, than using these tactics in a way that you may have to be involved. So I have a subordinate that's not doing their job, or they're not learning. Yeah, absolutely. Or I have a discipline issue, or I have a situation where, an example, I've got a guy working for me and he's going to school in the evening. He's working part-time at a auto auction. He's got his daughter every other day. He's involved in Little League Baseball. And then what the caveat was he was showing up late for all the details. He'd be there at 6. He'd show up an hour late constantly. Finally, it's like, okay, hey, not for nothing, but I need to know your schedule. I need to know your schedule. I need to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, and where you're doing it. Why? I have a reason, because I'm trying to determine why he's late for work, why he's late for these details. I got a 2 or 3 man unit out there and I need another body and he's not showing up. It's detrimental to what we're trying to do. Plus, it's a safety issue. So I need to know what's going on. Well, he gives me the schedule and I see all this and I ask him, I said, so you're sleeping 30 minutes a day in the evening. So what do you mean, boss? Well, based on everything you're doing, that leaves about 30 minutes to sleep. So there's some things that your primary job is here. The other stuff is secondary. We're not going to take away from family time by no means, but you need to reevaluate your effectiveness. Is that micromanaging? Could be seen that way, but it's for a reason. It's not just to micromanage folks. Oh, I think this keeps popping up. Is this the second time you've seen it? To receive trust, you must give trust. I have to give trust. The people have to trust me. They have to trust me. Micromanager, let it go. The difference between managing and micromanaging is the focus on the micro. Just what I said about the guy showing up or that situation. Okay, look at the micro. Get away from the micro. Quit worrying about that. Manage those situations that come about. Keep consistent, stay consistent with your management. Look at the low-hanging fruit. Quit looking, digging to find something wrong with the individuals. Engage in explicit discussions. What do I need to know? What do I need to know? How do I need to know it? What's going on? And trust in the fact that when someone tells you, this is what I'm doing, boss, that's what they're doing. I had a boss too that, it was constant. I remember one night we were doing a drug deal in Ligonier and the informant was late and I had to make a phone call and it was pouring down rain. Informant was with me. He had to make a phone call to the bad guy. And it was really weird because, okay, all right. I'm going to say something. It's going to date me a little bit, but you can see I'm old, right? We had to do a payphone. And instead of the phone handle being this way, away from the vehicle like they normally are, the phone was like this, out, the ends. So I pull up to the phone to let the informant roll the window down to make the phone call in a brand new Thunderbird. Thank you very much. It had about 4,500 miles on it. Pulled up and I got too close and I scraped the side of the car on the cell phone cover. Or I'm sorry, payphone cover. Put a crease in it. There's another guy with me, another agent with me. He was like, oh man, the guy's going to show up. We need to get there. We need to buy the dope. We go ahead and buy the dope. Next morning, I go on and tell my boss, I said, hey, I said, not for nothing, but I creased the side of my car, PD 49, property damage report. Oh, no, that's an accident. You left the scene of an accident. You did, I'm going to get you, I'm going to write you up and all that. Long story short, as it came out, it was a PD. It wasn't leaving the scene of an accident. But this is where this guy was. This was a micromanager. I mean, he would go to lengths to find wrong with everybody, not just me, but everybody. He would try to pit me against the other guy. Hey, where's so-and-so? Well, I don't know. You need to call him. Well, what's he doing? Well, I don't know. You need to call him. He's tracking with me. So did I trust that guy? No, absolutely not. Everything I did was to cover my backside because of him. Give the what, not the how. Set conditions of satisfaction for any task you assign. Don't set something up to where they're going to be a failure. Don't set them up to fail. Remember the standards. Set the conditions of satisfaction for any task you assign. Let's take it to this far. Let's take it this far. Here's what I want to happen. Here's what I expect to happen. Let's give them goals to achieve, not goals to deceive, all right? Let's let them set up and do things to make them work. Articulate what you envision the final outcome should look like. This is what I think it should end up, how it should end up. This is how I want it to. What do you think? Do you think you can achieve that? Do you think you can do it in this time span? What do you think? And if they come back to you and say, hey, boss, not for nothing, but certain things happen because we all know that working narcotics is fluid, right? So if it comes back to you and they say, hey, I'm going to need an extension on this or that, well, okay, what's your reasoning for? Well, because of blah, blah, blah. Okay. Or making a decision, not real sure that's going to work. Let me think about it. We might have to shut it down. Make that what you want to do. When in doubt, share the what and ask rather than tell your team member how to get there. What do we do to get there? What do you need? See, because I'm a facilitator, I'm a supervisor. What do you need? You need more manpower, more equipment, more time. What do you need to be successful? That's what I want to ask, and that's where I want to be. Expect to win most of the time. Underline your need to micromanage is the fear of failure. Things aren't going to go right. We're going to fail. We're not going to achieve the goal. It's the fear of failure. The things all don't go the same way all the time. Things don't happen the way we want. We don't control the bad guy. Well, we'd like to. I'd like to control all these clowns out here now, right? I had a magic remote. I could shut everybody down and hit restart, right? Reboot everything. We don't control. We got to learn to adapt to that. We don't control. Your employees engage in learned helplessness. Is that what you're wanting to do? I'm wanting them to learn not to be successful, not to set them up for success, but instead set them up for success and to be successful. And most importantly, provide direction, encouragement, and support. But geez, that takes a lot of effort, doesn't it? It takes a lot of effort, doesn't it? Hey, yeah, buddy, how you doing? Yeah, pat on the back. Hey, how you doing? Doesn't it? Yes, it does. Support them by giving them the tools to be successful. Does it take effort? Yeah. But let me ask you this. Did they come to you and ask you to put in for this supervisor's position? Nobody came to me. Nobody knocked on my door and said, hey, oh, by the way, Tom, we want you to be a supervisor. Or we want you to be promoted. They didn't come to me. I had to go to them. And what did you do? You had to go to them. Did you have to take the test, interview? They look back at your performance, look back at your record, look back at what you did for you to get promoted. Then once you got promoted, who asked for it? You did, right? You asked for it. So yeah, it's going to take work. It's going to take more work probably than it did when you was out buying dope and running and getting it. Because why? I've got more responsibility now. So it's going to take more work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to coach, mentor, lead, direct, and help them, provide direction, encouragement, and support them by giving them the tools to be successful. Because if I make them look good, they make me look good. Okay? Oh, there it is again. Must be something to remember. 7 strategies for managing a micromanager. If you work for a micromanager and you're not a micromanager, here's some things that can help you with that. We all have them as a manager who wants to manage a business rather than the business. They can suck every ounce of ambition out of you and leave you frustrated, angry, and annoyed all at the same time. I can honestly say yes. Been there, had that. Unbelievable. I mean, I self-motivated, didn't need a lot of supervision, didn't need people looking over my shoulder. My feet hit the floor, I was ready to go to work. But I had a guy that was a micromanager, and it just killed me. It just wore me down. Any of you guys out there can relate to what I'm saying? Absolutely. There's nothing worse than putting in hours of work only to have it redlined and reworked by the manager or by him herself. If this is a situation here, and if you're doing that, once you redline, rework, or change a report or change something, who's that fall back on? That falls back on you. That's not in that individual's words. Can I sit down and mentor and say, hey, look, you may think about what happened. Well, you're saying the same thing, but let's put it down this way. You tracking with me? I'm not going to change somebody's report or redline or change the way they do stuff. What I'm going to do is coach them up and help them write a report, because some of us know that's been supervisors for a while. Some reports are pretty bad. But whose fault is that? Is that your fault or their fault? Once you sign that, what are you saying? You're accepting it as it is, correct, right? In order to change that, I have to do what? Coach and mentor and get that individual up to speed on writing those reports. Okay. Fortunately, there are strategies you can employ to mitigate the micromanager factor, and here are 7 of them. Understand their decision-making process. Knowing how your manager arrives at a conclusion is a huge step in saving all those precious minutes of hours of micromanagement. Then we talk about the decision-making process. Where does that fall at when we're talking here? It falls into what? What do you expect? What would Ferguson do? What has they done consistently? How has this moved along? How would they arrive at that conclusion? What did they want you to do to get there? If you know the decision-making criteria he or she is looking for, you can get ahead of the curve by addressing that. Don't bring me a problem, but bring me a solution. I can do that. All right, I can do that. I can bring you a solution, not just a problem, not just a, hey boss, this is what I got. How many of you have ever did a federal case, going to the AUSA? You go in with your work box and you plop it down on their desk or on the conference room table and say, this is what I got. And you know for a fact you've got all your ducks lined up, your I's dotted, and your T's crossed. What do they say? You don't have enough. You need this, this, and this. Okay. What do? Put it in the corner? You go out and you get it. You bring it back. You may do that 3 or 4 times before they accept the case. Same thing here. What can I do to get ahead of that? Do I got to go back and look at action reports? Do I got to go back and look at all my case reports? Do I got to go back and look at all the things we did? How do we progress with these cases? What can I do to bring a solution on a problem? I was thinking ops plans. Can I go back and look at that? What can I do to change this? When in doubt, just ask. Pretty simple, huh? When in doubt, just ask. But there's an art to asking questions, because how and what you ask are equally, if not more important than the content itself. How do I go about asking? There's times where I went in, and I know one time I went in and talked to a certain captain, and I walked in and he was on his typewriter or his computer doing this and nodding his head as we were talking. So what did I do? I don't suggest you doing this. I reached over, I pushed this computer lid down so he could see me. And I asked him, what do you want to do? How do you want to go about this? That's what you have to do. You have to take the time to sit down and ask those important questions. What? Who, what, when, why, how? How do you want me to go about this? Asking your manager something such as, what can I do to save you time? Or think about yourself, what can I do to save me time if I'm falling into this micromanaging position or being in that micromanaging way? It helps build a rapport and clarify direction on how he thinks or the manager thinks. Exceed the expectations. Once you know what your manager defines as right, surpass it, be better. Do your home, yeah, it takes effort. It really does, it takes effort. But if you want to be successful, you got to put in the time. You got to put in the time. If it could be a lack of trust with themselves because they recently hard and don't want to become a recent fire. You tracking with me? They can be intimidated themselves. They may not know what to do. They may not know how to go about their business. They could be shuffled around and out the door they go, new guy comes in. So maybe you have to help them along. Maybe you have to help them along by introducing how things are done, how you would do things to make it right. Or maybe because they're unfamiliar. So until you know what to get your character never mind, getting tired. Competency levels, they want to ensure you read their success. All right. They may not know. I don't know how many of you had a boss that was never in narcotics before and got transferred. And my boss, the one that I never wanted to be like, got transferred from, what's that place where they do investigations on other officers? Yeah, that one. He got transferred from there as a first sergeant to the drug unit. And didn't really know much about drugs, but he knew about jamming people up. So I had to work around that, okay? Open the emotional floodgates to get the heart of why your manager feels compelled to micromanage. Demonstrate empathy by trying to view the problem from his or her perspective. How many have done that? How many have looked at the pressure that they may be under coming from the top down? That usually comes to a point with individuals who are put in a position to go in and clean up a squad or clean up a drug unit. Look at that. Look at it from their perspective. So again, what can I help you with? How can I help avoid that? What can I do to help you out? Because you're wanting to get them off your back. That's what you want to do. What can I do to help you out? If you really seem concerned about the turnout of this project, how can I take the pressure off of you? What can I do to help? What can I do to help you? Here's the important one I've talked about and I stress this whole time. Coach others. Coaching others in theirs, it sends a message that you have a firm grasp of the project requirement. Coach up, bring others up. Be that leader that he sees or she sees. Because now I've got individuals who've bought into the program too to try to circumvent this micromanaging. Okay, I'm going to bring everybody up. So if everybody's on the same sheet of music, those problems become solutions. Start with one of the three criteria integral to any project: time requirements or resources. It all boils down to that. Manpower, when's it going to be done? When's the timeline for it to be completed? Then it goes down to manpower, resources, vehicles, money, cars, you name it. Have all that planned out. Have all that set together. I guess if you do your due diligence to do your homework to eliminate any opportunity for that individual that micromanages to look at you and go, oh, well, you don't have all this done. But if you have it done, or 99% of it, there's not much they can say. What's the timeline for completion? And if you notice, this is all coming down to what? Communication. Whether they give you a timeline or whether you ask for one, it all comes down to communication. What are the requirements for success? What do we need? What do we have to have? And can we operate without that? What can we do now to further the investigation in order to be successful without the things that we need, but to get going, to move forward? Asking these questions conveys to your manager that you are capable of thinking more extensively than he or she previously considered. So get off my back, right? So get off my back. Find out what they need and talk about that. Be honest with yourself. Not all micromanage is unwarranted, right? We talked about that. We all do dumb things now and then, but if making mistakes becomes a habit, do this, no, do that. But make sure that we cover ourselves when we're doing it. Time to reflect about our behavior, to explore what you do well. What do I do well? What's my contribution to this? What do I do well? Remember, we're talking about going back to what? To Myers-Briggs or to the DISC? How effective am I and how do I do this well? Okay, where can I improve? Well, I'm not going to find that out unless I put the time in and the effort to do so. Because I may think that I'm doing everything right, and I may think that everything is done correctly, but maybe I'm lacking. Remember, the first thing I told you was what? Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and go, okay, where am I at? What do I need to do? You write out a plan of attack. Basically, what we were talking about, we're talking about ops plans, we're talking about resources, we're talking about writing that out in order for it goes through. We can send it down the line and either be considered to get done or to revamp what we got to do. Present it to your manager. Let them know. Keep them engaged. It's not easy dealing with somebody who needs control. The sooner you learn to manage or micromanager, the sooner your job becomes more rewarding. In all seriousness, as soon as you understand what it takes to make them tick or what it takes to help you, that idea of getting up and going to work in the morning won't be so dreadful. And if it is a situation where, as the course we talked about, micromanaging, and if you fall into that category, it may be time to reevaluate where you stand. It may be time to reevaluate what you may want to do in order to be away from the micromanaging. Delegation cycle. Who can I delegate to? Who can I delegate? Prepare, discuss, and teach. Here's that word again, coach. What can I delegate? We talked about micromanaging. In order to get out of micromanaging, I'm going to delegate this to individuals. I'm going to bring it to them so they can work it out. I can make them better. Tasks that will train each member's skills and experience. That's what I'm doing. And it may be an individual that's brand new to the unit that you have to bring through and teach and get them up to speed. So it's going to be small things to obtain, small goals to achieve, because you want them to be successful. You don't want them to come in and hammer them right off the bat and turn them against coming in. Tasks that will increase each team member's interest in their work. Again, like I said, I can't put somebody with ADHD in a surveillance van in the middle of nowhere, because that's not going to work. But then yet again, I'm going to have to coach that individual up to get them give them the ability to do every job within the unit so that everybody can have a hand in it to do that. But I'm not going to give somebody a job or put them in a position where they don't have any interest, because that's not going to work if I delegate that to them. Tasks that you know other members of your teams are better at doing than you. My example was towards the end of the day was the electronic technical stuff. I used to wear a Kel set under my arm, the old 0.5 emitter right here. Now you guys got all kinds of stuff. Technical savvy, not me, but that's what my young guys were for. That's what I would use them. Say, hey, teach me how to use this, or have someone interested in doing that and put them there. Tasks that need to be done, but you don't have time. Again, what lane am I driving in? I may delegate something to somebody that may be an administrative position, maybe administrative work that I don't have time to do, but I'm putting it in within the parameters of their ability to get it done. Okay? Tasks that are not worth your hourly rate to do them. Am I any better than anybody else? No. But as a supervisor, the work that needs to be done, is it the plus and balance? Is it the balance up and down? Whether if I'm out there doing it and it's way above what I should be doing, but someone else can do it at a different level. It kind of goes back to the idea of letting that individual get that experience. Tasks where you're not adding value to the overall task or project. I'm just in the way. There's days when I wanted to go out and get involved in surveillance. There's days when I want to go out and do stuff. As a matter of fact, my last Brickyard 400 was working out on 38th Street in Indianapolis. I was away from the track, and they kept asking me, Cap, what are you doing out here? Why are you way out here? Because they needed manpower, and I volunteered to go out there.